Hey everyone, today is February 4th, 2024. Welcome once again to a short video presentation courtesy of investingsuccess.ca. In this video presentation, I want to review a book. I actually have this in my collection, found it the other day. It's been a long time since I've read it. Written in 1972 by a Canadian author. His name was Thomas Reeder. And he apparently was someone who traded the markets back in the late 60s into the early 70s, used astrology, among other things, and in 1972 decided to record his thoughts. And he published the book. The title is Astrological Warnings and the Stock Market. I do believe you can still get it on Amazon if you look for it. So Mr. Reeder did something a little bit unusual. He focused on the planet Mars. And in particular, he said, what happens on the stock market when Mars makes aspects, angles, to the outer planets? So that is to say, what would happen when Mars made an angle of 0 degrees to Jupiter, to Saturn, to Uranus, to Neptune, to Pluto? What would happen if Mars was 90 degrees square to these various planets? What about if Mars was 120 degrees trine? What if it was 180 degrees opposite? And that's really what he focused on in all of his trading and investing. And that is the basis then for his book. There's other things he talks about in the book which are interesting as well. But for here and now, I just want to focus on his thoughts on Mars. And I want to show you then some examples from the current time to show you that basically what he was talking about in 1972, for the most part, is still very accurate today. Now, in order to do what he talks about in his book, you're going to need some ephemeris data. I've got some in the Financial Astrology Almanac in the back appendix part of the book. I do give you some for 2024, but that's not going to do you any good for previous years. You may want to go and get yourself something called the New American Ephemeris for the 21st century. Or failing that, if you search around on the internet, you will find websites where you can get the ephemeris data for free. Maybe you have a software program at your disposal that allows you to overlay astrological events onto price charts of stocks and commodities. But in any case, you're going to need the data. So now let's go back in time here, if we may. I'm going to start with the planet Mars, and I'm going to look at planet Mars making 0 degree aspects, that is conjunctions, with Jupiter. And so here is a segment of the S&P 500, and this chart segment is taken from the early part of 2000. And back in those days, it was the dot-com bubble. Everything was overvalued. Valuations were stretched beyond belief. People were saying these markets can't hold. There's going to be a correction. When is it coming? And the market seemingly defied everybody's expectations. And as you can see in this chart here, starting in late February of 2000, what did the market do? It decided it was going to push even higher. And that was all fine and wonderful until it wasn't. What caused it to change? Well, you're looking at it. Mars, 0 degrees conjunct to Jupiter. And literally 3 or 4 days prior to that aspect starting to manifest, you had a peak on the S&P 500. And that high water mark was not to be retested. And the markets just declined right into the latter part of 2002 before they started to recover. So there's an example of what Mr. Reider was talking about. You look for these major 0, 90, 180-degree aspects between Mars and the outer planets. You still have to use your chart technical analysis. You still have to be very dialed in as to what the trend is. And as a matter of fact, you can see here that your slow stochastic was definitely in overbought territory. So the market is saying, I'm prime for a correction of some sort. And sure enough, just as the stochastic crossed back beneath the 80 level, that's when you started this 0-degree conjunction, and the markets changed trend and actually fell apart. So if you know how to follow the trend, if you know how to read it, measure it, discern it, you do that in conjunction with the astrology, and you will be very quickly going places. Okay, here's another one, moving ahead in time a little bit. 2001, we had, of course, the tragic events of September 11th, 2001. Stock market was closed for a bit, but when it reopened, it continued to fall. And I'm sure a lot of people thought, how much lower can this thing go? This has never happened, in the U.S. basically since Pearl Harbor, an attack on sovereign soil. But all people had to do is take a look at some of the aspects that were bearing down. So here we have got Mars 180 degrees opposite to the planet Jupiter. And, literally 3 days prior to that aspect starting to manifest itself, the market bottomed and it reversed and it went on to rally. So just knowing that aspect was coming, there's your change of trend where the stochastic crosses over, and astrology plus technical chart indicator, trend change indicator, and you have got an upper hand on the markets and you're miles ahead of the average trader or investor. Okay, moving a little bit farther ahead in time. Subprime mortgage crisis, 2007, 2008. We very nearly destroyed the capitalist system as it existed at the time. So the markets had been declining, getting very ugly throughout 2008. A lot of people were expecting some kind of a trend change. The government was trying to bail everybody out with TARP and whatever other programs they had concocted. So here in this chart, you can see that Mars, 0-degree conjunct to Jupiter. And look what happens. About 8 days later, the market finally bottoms and the trend changes. There it is right there. There's your bottom. And here's your Mars-Jupiter aspect. And away we went. So knowing that aspect was there, all you had to do was be alert then for the change of trend as indicated by the slow stochastic or whatever technical trend indicator you are using, and you have got something. And that's exactly what Jim Reider's point was in 1972 when he penned his book. Okay, moving a little bit farther on in time, we all remember this one, obviously, March of 2020, the great sell-off, COVID. Look what happened. Mars, 0 degrees conjunct to Jupiter, When did that occur? Right at the very bottom of the sell-off, right when the trend changed. There's your change of trend right there. It comes right in the heart of this aspect between Mars and Jupiter. Knowing that that aspect was coming, knowing that the markets had been in a panicky free fall, obviously there's going to be at some point a turn, and there it was. And the astrology and the trend indicator took you by the hand, and it helped you out. Now, more recently, in October of 2023, it more or less became talk on Wall Street that the Federal Reserve was going to start cutting interest rates, and the markets started to get overly exuberant, and a lot of future forward earnings were brought into the present time. Analysts changed their valuation models, and big hedge funds and investment funds started to bid the prices of a lot of big tech names higher. And we started to hear, artificial intelligence and NVIDIA, and the story. What else was going on at the time? Well, your trend was changing, but you had Mars 180 degrees opposite to Jupiter. So knowing that that was coming, you could have been watching for the trend to change. You've got the aspect coming on strong. You don't know how much the markets are going to rally, but you know there's going to be some kind of a trend change, even if only small. That right there was deserving of a trade or an investment, and you would have been amply rewarded had you taken a position there. Okay. Now, I'm going to go back in time and kind of start this exercise all over again. This time, I'm going to use Mars and Saturn. And so, in October of 2002, when the market finally bottomed after the ugly tech blowout and the war on terror was slipping into high gear, what did you have? Well, you've got Saturn square Mars. And that right there gave you a trend change and a little bit of a boost on the S&P 500. Up here in November, early December of 2002, you had Saturn 120 degrees trine to Mars. And look what happened there. Yes, the markets had rallied, but that represented a tipping point, and the markets gave back some of what they had rallied. And you could sort of see that there was potential for that. Your slow stochastic is above the 80 level, and you're looking then for, if the market is going to decline, you're looking for that stochastic to break below the 80 level, and it did. And now here's a question for you. When it broke, when it started to decline, how much did it decline? Well, here's your answer. It gave back 38% of what it had rallied between October and late November. What's significant about 38%? That's a Fibonacci ratio. Fibonacci 38.2% retracement. So now we've got Fibonacci mathematics. I refer to that as above, so below. The planets, as I've explained in other videos on my YouTube channel, the planets are spatially aligned according to the Fibonacci sequence. And so, here's a Mars-Saturn aspect, causes a market decline, a small one, but it's a Fibonacci retracement level. Isn't that amazing? Now, going a little bit farther ahead here, we're going to revisit the March 2020 COVID panic sell-off lows. What did we have? Well, we have got Mars conjunct Saturn. And that aspect started to manifest itself 3 days after the actual low in March of 2020. Now remember, from our previous slides, what else did we have going on at that time? You had Mars conjunct Jupiter. So now you've got Mars conjunct Jupiter and you've got Mars conjunct Saturn. That's two major aspects. Is it any surprise that this represented a major turn in human emotion, a major turn in the markets? Anytime you see two of these guys overlapping, sit up, take notice, pay attention. Something is going to happen. All right, let's not talk about stuff that already has happened. Let's talk about what's potentially going to happen. We have got a Mars 0 degrees to Saturn conjunct event coming in the early part of April. Now, what the markets are going to do between now and early April, I don't know. They could easily press higher. They could easily pull back and then press higher into April. If you read my almanac, the work of Professor Weston is actually calling for some kind of a market maximum or relatively high turning point in April. That doesn't mean the markets have to be at a record high, but certainly it implies that when the markets turn, it could be a while before that turning point is tested and re-challenged. So keep your eyes then on early April 2024 for something to happen at the Mars-Saturn conjunction. All right, let's back up a little bit in time here. And this time I want to look at Mars and the planet Neptune. Now, I've looked back, through decades of price data. I'm finding that the majority of what Mr. Reeder talked about in his book really is coming to bear fruit when it comes to Jupiter and Saturn. Every now and again, you will find something pertaining to Neptune, and here's a prime example. Here's your March lows in 2009. Look where they occurred. You had Mars 0 degrees conjunct to Neptune right smack at the low on the 9th of March 2009. So knowing that that was coming, and I think we said in previous slides there was a few other aspects at the same time. You had this overlap. The markets had been ugly and falling apart for well over a year. You had the government talking about coming in with bailout money. And all of a sudden you have a change of trend and you've got the astrology working for you. Take advantage of it and off to the races you go. Now let's take a look at the farthest out of our planets in our solar system, the little guy we call Pluto. In this chart, I've got Mars 180 degrees opposite to Pluto, and that occurred in September of 07. And look what happened, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, let's call it 9 or 10 days after that aspect was done. You had a significant turning point on the markets. There it is on the stochastic. So this was an early warning signal, if you will, that something was going to change. Now, January of 2008, here it is again. You've got Mars 180 degrees opposite to Pluto. And look what happened here. Your stochastic actually failed to get above the 80 level. That's a warning sign because the market had actually been trying to press a little higher here. It couldn't get above the 80 on the stochastic, and you've got your 180 degree opposition aspect. And look what the markets did. Down they go. Now, one more time. Mars was 180 degrees opposite to Pluto in March of 08. Stochastic was very much oversold. And look what the markets did after that aspect manifested. Rallied. So there you go. Again, these aspects are offering you a hint. They're offering you a roadmap. They're offering you a look forward. Okay, March of 2020. You had Mars conjunct Pluto. So our previous slides showed that we had other aspects. So that's, by my count, we had 3 major aspects involving Mars at the March 2020 lows. If that isn't a screaming invitation to buy, I don't know what is. And so, never mind looking at the past. Let's look forward. Let's see what we got coming at us here. Starting next week, February 11th through the 16th, we have got Mars conjunct Pluto. What's going to happen? I don't know. The stochastic will certainly tell me when we get closer. That is going to be followed by Mars 90 degrees square to Jupiter, and that's going to occur between the 23rd and the 28th of February. Following that, we have got Mars 90 degrees square to Uranus, and that's going to occur March 7 through the 12th. So mark those dates on your calendar. Pay attention to the chart of the S&P 500. Pay attention to the slow stochastic or to your favorite trend following indicator, and get ready for some volatility. The volatility could be significant or not. So this is where you're going to have to use your Fibonacci math. You're going to have to watch your trend following indicator, your moving averages, and any other technical indicators that you typically follow. But there's 3 dates. There's a look forward. There's your roadmap. All right. That is it for here and now. As I say, the 2024 Almanac is obviously still out there. Follow the trend is my answer to helping people understand these trend following chart indicators. You can visit me at investingsuccess.ca. Astrology letter is out there. Cycles report is available for subscription. And what I've been doing as of late is treating my subscribers to a complete review of the work from the 1930s of a German-American astrologer. His name was Georg Bayer. His Americanized name was George Bayer. And he had a series of rules. And I'm showing in my published newsletters how his rules that he devised in the 1930s are still accurate to this day, frighteningly so. And you will also find me on Substack. And I posted a couple articles on Substack today. One of them talking about the center of mass of our solar system versus the center of our sun. And it's very interesting that the inner planets, Venus, Earth, and Mars, do have the capability of shifting the center of mass of our solar system slightly. And there actually is a short cycle that scientists have identified. And curiously enough, that short cycle, when you take some of the harmonics of it, actually aligns to cycles from the plant and animal kingdom that we see in nature all around us. So we are very much living in a system, let's call it grand design. There is a higher power that runs all of this stuff, and we are simply along for the ride. And if more people understood cycles and astrology, I would say more people would have better luck or be able to stay out of trouble more often on the financial markets. Okay, that's it, guys. Thank you kindly for watching this. So, Thomas Reeder, Canadian author, 1972, Astrological Warnings and the Stock Market, still is available on Amazon, and that should tell you something. So get yourself a copy of it and have a read, and keep amassing knowledge and keep fine-tuning those skills, and you will conquer the markets. Have a great day. Take care.